my beauty, my lord. Rule me like Rudy so I can do as goody as the.
You're listening to Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
This is a new headset my kids got me other one destroyed. All right, here we are, episode number 86. It's been a while.
I think it's 87.
We don't have to start over at 1 at this point.
Seriously.
This is a full reboot, starting at 1. I think this is 86. Well, I'll correct it in whatever it is. So here we are. We're back. It's been a while since we've all spoke. Best I can tell, Weld went kayaking for 90 seconds in Chile since our last show. Lewis with a top 10 result in the Little White Race. And Grace, well, I've had a midlife crisis. 86 is going to be a hell of a show, or 87. We've got longtime and soon-to-be retiring Executive Director of American Whitewater, Mark Singleton, on the show. Little Green Race recap, Little White recap, South American trip report, Grand Canyon trip report, policy updates, rants and raves, listener mail, and more.
It's been so long that we're doing our Green Race recap. And this is going to double as the preview for the next Green Race.
I mean, we gotta get it in.
I'm basically only here because I can't even get a hold of either of you guys anymore. And I was just like, all right, this is the only way. I'm like, Grace, I don't know if you and I are in some fight I don't know about. I've been like texting you. Like,
I was texting Grace for like a month, and I was like, he must be pissed at me about something.
I wasn't pissed at anybody. I apologize. You know, I
was just worried about you, man.
You're
That's
not.
what I said.
You're not the only one. You know, full disclosure. You know, without to go too deep into everything. I think I told you this, John. But my parents had a health bout. One of them had sepsis, really bad. Was in the hospital for a couple weeks. Had big long month recovery before they could walk and whatever. And no sooner than he got better, my stepmom had a heart attack. And so there was just a bunch of time of me, I just kind of just got real introspective and just kind of tapped out. And, you know, I don't want to say midlife crisis because it wasn't like a negative thing, but I just kind of tapped out for a little while, fully got out of social media, and I don't really know. It was just a period of recollection on some various things. Knock on wood, everybody's doing good back home. Things are all on the up and up, and you know, hopefully I can, you know, start thinking more about fun projects and doing cool things again. So that's where I've been. So just don't think I was mad at anybody. So, and that goes to everybody else who's been listening, who I've been not in communication with. So,
well,
all right,
mine all's well, man.
It's not my fault. That's all I took away from that.
Anyway, that's what I've been up to. I went on an amazing Grand Canyon trip. You guys want to hear about it?
Yeah, is your
Please,
shoulder
that'd be
okay?
great.
Weld told me you thought you'd hurt your.
My shoulder's
rotator cuff.
my shoulder's messed up, but my big problem is I've got a C6 radiculopathy. Have you ever heard of that?
That's not real.
I think someone like it's like algae diagnosis.
This is a real thing, a C6 radiculopathy. Look it up. I wish I had like a henchman over in the corner. I could be like, look that up. Show these boys. but no, my shoulder felt pretty decent. You know, it was definitely hurt, and I made it down the Grand Canyon, and I went to the gym. I went kayaking one day on the green. I got a great rave about the Scorch X. Have you guys paddled the Scorch X? Man, I've had some time in that boat. I really like it. But anyway, I went to the gym, and I was just doing some bench pressing, and I just felt like this little pop, like in my back, like in my shoulder, like just kind of like back here. I was like, what was that? And I woke up the next morning, and like my whole shoulder hurt, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I went to the doctor, got it looked at. I do have some mild tears in my rotator cuff, but nothing super bad. But I have what's called a C6 radiculopathy, where you have like a pinched nerve that comes out of your C6 vertebrae. There'll be some medical people who know I'm not full of shit when I say that.
Well, we missed you at the Little White Race, man. I thought you were gonna.
I was
looking forward to it.
I was looking forward to it too. How'd it go?
Good. It was yeah, it was fun. We've moved the race earlier and earlier and earlier every year because the water seems to get worse and worse and worse every year. But we, finally had a good one this year. It was like 3-5, just like nice medium, good race level. Big turnout, probably the biggest one yet.
Where are the results? I was looking before the show. I know Todd Wells won, and I think Noria won. But
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if they're on littlewhiterace.com or if they were just on social media, or I don't know. They're on kicking around the internet somewhere. But I mean, yeah, lots of interesting things. I mean, biggest women's class ever. Darby definitely gave Noria a run for her money, which was really cool to see. And did like the head-to-head GoPro at the party, and it was a race, for sure. That was really cool. Todd Wells won the men's race paddling a longboat. We had a lot of hand wringing among everybody about like what the boat rules were going to be this year. Like typically, like it's always been a short boat race, but then the Scorch X came out, and there's like a lot of people here who are paddling the Scorch X just like every day, and it felt sort of lame to tell people that the boat you paddle every day, you can't race it. So we were like, okay, like we should let people should be able to race that boat. And then it was like, well, if we're gonna let some people race a 10-foot boat, we should probably just open it all the way up. But only a couple people raced longboats, but Todd won in the Vanguard. Not by a huge margin. I mean, 5 seconds. I mean, that's solid, but not like insane on a 14-minute race.
oh, that's tight.
And then Dane, like went under the log below Boulder Sluice, lost his paddle, lost like 25 seconds, and still was in the top 10. And if he hadn't had that mistake, he would have won by 15 or 20 seconds for sure in a short boat. So I'd say definitely still open question, like what the fastest boat for racing the Little White is, but interesting turn of events, I would say.
Yeah, that's kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's going to be people who are into it and people who are not, but it sure makes it exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the thing out here is like, I mean, it's not, I mean, people run Little White in a longboat from time to time for sure. It's not some like unheard of occurrence, but it's just like not that fun. And like, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, I we had a vote for what the rules should be, and I voted open just on principle. But at the same time, like, I don't really want to do a bunch of runs in a longboat to like get ready for the race. Like, there's just a lot of lines that don't really work very well. Like, you're stern tapping all the time, or just can't keep the bow up, and like, it's just not that fun. But I don't know, progression, I guess.
To be a different experience, though.
For sure, but I'm not sure it's. I mean, there were.
I mean, Ian, the Stoutmeister talks about that's his his boat of choice out there now.
Yeah. I mean, Dave paddles it every day. There's definitely a handful. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think what the results were. So Todd won in the Vanguard. Alec Voorhees was second in a Nirvana. Owen Doyle was third in a Scorch X. Cole Moore was fourth in a Scorch X. Zach McFarland and EG tied fifth. EG was in a Steez. Zach was in a Scorch X. So, like, I don't know. A lot of Scorch X's up there for sure. But not like you can't win in something else.
So if you're a boat manufacturer, do you give your athletes a pass to race a Scorch X if you're not sponsored by Piranha?
No, I don't know. I don't care. I feel like.
Well, I mean, if they can paddle a longboat, you certainly would be like, hey, paddle our company's boat,
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Do you guys get a lot of background noise?
I think that's my mic.
It's just like.
Or maybe that's Weld's mic. I think that was Weld's mic.
Yeah.
Is it gone now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is Weld.
Hey, we're rusty.
My fan
right.
is on my computer. Is that it?
It's all right. They'll forgive us. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I don't know. I wanted to go. I felt good coming off my Grand Canyon trip and getting some paddling in. I felt like I would not just make a total ass of myself.
It was my first non-surf ski race start in 2+ years.
Nice. Where did you end up in the results?
I was tied ninth with our buddy Jeff Calhoun.
Nice. How did your race go?
It was good, man. I felt like my run was like as good as I could have done it. Like at least rolling out of bed that morning, like relative to what was possible for me on that day, like that was as good as I could have done it. Which feels, it feels good to put together the best race you can. It also feels like a little bit of a bummer when you put together the best race you can and it's
Ninth place.
20 seconds back, But like, it was good. I was stoked. It was fun.
And you were in, what did you paddle, you said?
Steez.
Estes. Well, should we jump right into your trip to Chile, Weld?
Yeah, while we're on the injury conversation.
Jesus. Yeah. So last summer I was like, all right, I was all in, right? My kid was paddling with me every day. I paddled the Tross a bunch, paddled Cispus a bunch. I went back to the East Coast for Golly Fest, paddled that. Paddled Blackwater with my kid, which is glorious. And looking forward to I had a goal for Little White Laps for the season, and to kick the season off, I was going on a trip to Chile to meet our buddy LJ down there. He's got a place to stay down there, and he's actually building a brewery. But me and a couple of my buddies were going to go down there and paddle. So this was November. The trip was first week in November, like for 10 days or so. Getting to Chile was a pain in the ass, and I won't go into too much details, but I will say that it was enough pain in the ass, but my COVID test was like an hour and a half too soon. So I missed the first flight and had to come back the next day.
Wait. So you went down there?
I went to the airport in Portland.
Okay.
And to get on the plane, they had checked my COVID test, and because of the time change where I got I had to mail it out somewhere to get it done. I just didn't calculate all the time zones correctly, and it was like not done at the correct time. And so they're just like, you can't get on the plane. So I have to come back the next day. I go get an instant test and come back the next day, get on the plane. We get to Chile, they make you do another PCR test or whatever, and you can't get any kind of public transportation until you pass this test, right? Anyway, it goes on and on. So I get there. Super psyched. We're going to paddle, but all the Chilean classics. We're going to paddle the annual the last few days, which is going to be, great experience. So we're doing like a warm up run of the Puesco, which is the river right outside LJ's place, and it's like class 4. And I'm just kind of floating down, not really paying attention. Maybe first 15 minutes on the first day, flip upstream, dislocate my shoulder. First time ever. Never in 40 years of paddling, I've never had a shoulder injury. And I will point out that before I left, I was talking about this exact thing with people saying, I've done all this, weightlifting or, my entire life to prevent this kind of thing from happening. But so we set it back into the river, which was a good time. Because anybody who's had this happen knows. Hike out, and I just hang out for a week. Because I just can't get back on the plane, I would have if I could have, but it's just too much of a headache, with the COVID and everything. So, so I get back. We have a friend of ours who's a shoulder surgeon. I've been kind of consulting with him about this when I got back. He said, well, give it a little bit. If it's still really bothering you in a month or so, you should get an MRI. What I should have done, and anyone has this happen, just go get the MRI right off the bat. Don't waste time, because I did. I didn't get the MRI until like January. 3 months later, and it was fucked, basically. And so I finally got it fixed like 2 weeks ago.
What was the
now I'm out for like 6 months.
What was the diagnosis?
I actually have it here. I thought you'd ask that. Let me, we're getting some noise issue. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from.
Hold on for 1 sec, guys.
Oh, that's better. Is that better, Lewis?
Like as soon as we can't hear Weld anymore, it's better. It's Weld, I think.
Is that better?
Yeah.
You're a little overmodulated, but I don't hear the noise anymore.
Testing.
I can hear you.
Yeah? Do I make things better or worse?
Better.
I think you sound great.
How about now?
I don't hear
Yeah?
any background noise now.
All right. All right. So let's see. Here's what I did. Right shoulder dislocation with rotator cuff tear, anterior labral tear, slap tear, and partial biceps tear. So I was full house. I did it all.
So they went in, pulled tendons from different parts of your body, put it all in there, and put you back together?
Yeah. So 6 months. It's been fun. It's been a good time.
Well, I'm glad you're on the up and up. How many more months
Yeah.
do you have?
5 months and 2 weeks.
Well, why don't you just give your Whitewater journal to Lewis, because he filled his up and he needs another one, and you're not going to use yours.
That's great.
We'll see.
And it's been a pretty good paddling season too, I want to point out, right?
Yep. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. Injuries suck.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So
It's all in the game.
yeah.
Somehow when you told me the story, it sounded like you slid off the bank, you were above the first waterfall, somebody went, you were second, and like you took 3 strokes and tripped on your paddle or something and broke your
Me?
shoulder. Isn't that what happened?
Me?
Yeah, you.
No. I was floating down this river following a friend of mine, not paying attention at all. It was like a kind of it has a rapids as a name, but I can't remember the name of it. But it's some manky, like bouldery constricted thing at pretty low volume, and I flipped upstream. And as I flipped upstream, I was kind of reaching up to roll, and my paddle must have caught something. I don't know. And I swam. First swim in like forever too.
Oh. Whew. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, Lewis, what do you think? Are you going to keep it open class race out there? Are you guys going to make it not 10 foot? Or what do you think?
I don't know. I feel like Rush is running the race now, and I feel like he's a little anxious that if we have a bunch of people doing laps all the time, like if we encourage longboat racing, that it's going to get, like the safety becomes a little worse, which I think is fair. I honestly don't think there are that many people who are going to be faster in a longboat than they are in a short boat. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Did Todd have a clean run, or did he have any spin outs, or did you talk to him?
I don't think we've really debriefed about it.
Oh, maybe I'll have to get him on an episode and hear about his longboat. Did he set the course record?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's I feel like we don't really pay as much attention to that here because the water level is so much more all over the place for the race. I kind of want to say no, though.
Gotcha.
We had a race one year, maybe it was 17 when it was 3.8, so I think that probably would have been a little faster. But for some reason, the results from that year aren't up on the website, so hard saying.
Can you believe that we haven't got canceled yet?
Let's not tempt fate.
I just
Like when I leave the office to come here to do the show, the room goes silent every time, and then someone would be like, "Don't ruin this business." It's always the same.
Oh God, that's so funny. Have you guys followed the Penn swimmer controversy? The
No.
transgender Leah Thomas Penn swimmer controversy?
Are you just looking for something to...
Yeah, right.
I'm just wondering. We're talking about racing,
Well, what's the controversy?
I'm just preparing myself for when Rush shows up and wants to race in the girls' class at the green race next year, and how I'm going to handle it.
Dude, no. Don't equate those things, and don't start us down this path.
Oh God!
What is the
Playing with
controversy?
fire.
The controversy is that this transgender girl won a race, and people are calling it unfair because
What race?
A swimming race.
Oh.
It was a long distance discipline. I don't know exactly which one it was, but that's the big controversy. And
Kara, when she was racing slalom many years ago, there was a guy who transitioned into a gal for the join the women's slalom team. You remember that, Geltman?
I heard about it, but it was before my time.
Yeah. And you'd have to ask Kara to elaborate this, but I remember being like, it was a thing. You know what I mean? I mean, there was a lot of, there's a lot of people concerned about that for sure on both sides. So.
Yeah, that was one of the...
This was like 1990 probably. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard. To me, it's a women's issue. I don't know if I got a dog in that fight personally,
but it was an Olympic year, right? And this person had a chance of securing a spot in the Olympics, So I put a little bit of extra heat on the issue for sure.
Well, what's your take, Lewis?
Yeah, Lewis.
I mean, I guess I feel like sports, I don't know, it's complicated. I mean, I guess I feel like certainly in like high school and younger sports, it's like there was absolutely no call for excluding trans people from anything, right? Like it's just like sports are, it's about encouraging healthy behavior in children and learning and like doing things that are fun. And like I feel like, so much of this conversation is just right-wing people looking for some kind of like culture war issue, and it's like if the first time you've ever paid attention to women's sports in your entire life is to get worked up about trans people participating in them, like fuck off. I mean, I think maybe it's more complicated at elite levels, but I feel like there are people who are trying to answer those questions in a way that's fair to everybody, that is it's just not my expertise, but like I think sports are inherently unequal, right? And like there's so many things about everybody has a gender or a genetic advantage or a genetic handicap of some description, and like it's only in I don't know, I feel like there's just so much around women's sports where it becomes like unfair and intertwined with all of these like sociocultural expectations around women that it's like, I don't know, like I don't feel like it's my place to answer, but I feel like so much of the like discourse in this space is just like pretty disingenuous and
there's no doubt about
ginning
that.
up controversy where there doesn't need to be any, Yeah.
And you want everybody to be their authentic self, So it's
totally,
like, you can't argue with that. I think the one, like if I were the NCAA and this is like something that I was going to have to deal with year over year, I think the only issue you got to really deal with is like the drug use. To me, like I don't see it as like, I see it as like you can't have performance enhancing drugs to make the podium. You got a question performance inhibiting drugs to make the podium. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
It's just a drug thing to me. But I don't know.
I'll have to weigh in on this.
like 10 people have asked me what would I do if somebody came to the green race and there was a transgender girl who wanted to come race the green race, and dude, I would just ask the other girls. I don't even feel like I could make that decision. You know what I mean?
Just let her fucking race. Who cares? It's the fucking green race, It's like I don't understand. Like everybody's, I don't know. I feel like sometimes just the more stakes you put on sports and the more bureaucracy, and it's like it's all just arbitrary and it's all just for fun, and it's like, what somebody else does, what time somebody else puts down doesn't change what time you put down. It's like you do your own thing. You like race your own race and don't worry about it. It's my attitude, and let everybody participate.
No, there's no doubt about that. I don't know. I just don't feel like I got a dog in that fight. But a lot of people have asked me about it. Moving on.
Did you guys see that? Not that this is really not relevant at all. But did you see the Noria documentary on Red Bull?
Watched it last night.
I have not.
What'd you think? I had a long conversation with your girlfriend about this, Lewis, out in the rain yesterday.
Yeah, she told me that.
Yeah, but go ahead. What'd you think?
I mean, I thought it was sick. It's inspiring, badass. I mean, makes me want to go run the shit. I don't know. It was, I mean, I agree with some of Darby's criticisms for sure. I mean, I think,
What was her criticism as far as you understood them?
I mean, I wouldn't want to put words in her mouth, but I mean, I think part of it was, I mean, she liked it. She was stoked for sure, but, and like found it super inspiring. Yeah, I wouldn't want to put words in her mouth about it, but she was into it for sure. Um, yeah, I thought it was sick. It was cool to see, it's cool to see Eve in there. Do you remember Eve Narduzzi?
Oh yeah.
He's like Noria's coach, but for a while before he went back and coached Slalom in France, he was coaching the C1s in the US, and he's just like
Race with him.
he's super good, dude. He is really it was really fun having him as one of the coaches in the US, and I miss that guy.
What was your take, John?
Well, I thought we just keep having these really great movies come out in paddle sports, and this is certainly one of them. I mean, in terms of biopics, it's top notch, and to me, one of the defining things about this for me was, I mean, above and beyond the fact that Noria's paddling, at the top of her game, you know what I mean, and what she's doing is astounding, but that she really avoids the women's athlete perspective. It seems like she pretty purposefully just doesn't even engage in that conversation. Which I'm sure people are going to have opinions about one way or the other.
Now, what do you mean by that?
I think there'd be a temptation from the movie maker or the athlete to frame her paddling career in the context of what she's accomplished as a woman paddler.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For the women paddlers, or making a big deal out of that. But that was almost obviously not discussed. I thought it was good. I thought I'd like that. I don't think her paddling requires any kind of modifier, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Gutman has I mean, what did you think? Do you think I'm misreading?
I mean, it was in there a little bit, but I agree with you. I thought it was,
because I think it has to be addressed, right? But I think it was very much not Noria's agenda. That was the movie maker's agenda to throw that in there. It seemed like.
Yeah, I don't know. It was. I think I really appreciated just how like real it felt. Like it was like no added hype, but no gnarliness taken out either. Like it seemed like just like very, I don't know, just like a very real window into paddling.
Without spoiling it, was it just Nori as a kid, her evolution?
Yeah. I mean, they had great footage of her paddling slalom as a kid, and I mean, I'm probably overthinking this, but I think there's a temptation for these biopics about athletes of any sport, but to sort of cast the athlete as, someone who's achieved this excellence in sports through a journey, and there's some hardships thrown in, but now they're great at the sport and they have some insights into life. There's some kind of guru, or they have some kind of, mystical, ability that the river has taught them how to navigate choices in life or whatever. But that's not in this at all. And that's just not Noria's style. And there's no bullshit whatsoever, and I mean, I'm not an athlete along those lines, of course, obviously, but I'm definitely someone who's dedicated my life to kayaking, one way or the other. And I mean, for me, it's been a really rocky road. I mean, kayaking has given me everything I've ever wanted 1,000 times over and taken it away down to zero 1,000 times over. And there's no clear answers what that means for me. You know what I mean? I'm just as, and in fact, I think those cycles for a lot of people are kind of damaging. You know what I mean? I mean, you kind of start getting PTSD after a while, just being, whether someone drowning for a friend drowning for the umpteenth time that or, risking losing everything you have for the 100th time making kayaking gear. I don't think it's, have that narrative arc where, everything's sort of coming up roses and you're figuring life out at the end doesn't ring true for me, at least from my experience. And I appreciate that Noria's seem to have the same, attitude about it. It's a mixed bag.
No, I like that. I think, I was just thinking back to the last couple months, thinking about taking care of my parents, taking care of my kids, and whatever, and where paddling fits into that. But it still fits in. You know what I mean? It's got its place. It didn't help me deal with my sick parents or help me so much with each of these, but it still is a big part. I think I'm kind of saying the same thing you're saying there. No, I'm going to have to check that out. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Probably everybody listening has already watched
Yeah, get the
that.
Red Bull app, and it's on the Red Bull app. You can cast it to whatever. But, I mean, it's great, right? I mean, the three movies we've talked about, the Lindgren movie, and then the Los Polacos movie, and then this. I mean...
Do you know who made the movie?
Whatever. What's that?
Do you know who made the movie?
Red Bull, and then who's the athlete who put it together?
I want to say David Arnaud. Is that right?
Yeah.
David
I'm sure I'm
Arnaud.
mispronouncing his name. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good job.
Cool, I'm a
Definitely
fan.
Definitely a kayaker was behind the lens on that one. It wasn't like a non-voter.
Moving on, Lewis, or we got Mark Singleton coming on. Did I even introduce that in the beginning of the show?
You did, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, we got Mark coming on here in about 11 minutes, Lewis. So I want to hear 4 months worth of Outdoor Alliance policy updates wrapped into 11 minutes.
Oh, my God. When was the last time we did this?
Where are we on the we're fucked meter?
Yeah, just give me
Is
the...
it pegged on the we're fucked? Is it just
I
like...
don't know.
Or
There's
things are
there's
looking
the
good.
There's like the macro fucked and the micro,
The macro fucked is the Grand Canyon Lake Powell, dude.
We've been talking about toying around with coming up with some sort of tagline for Outdoor Alliance, and the one I've been pushing for is helping things get worse more slowly. Or slowing our descent into the abyss.
Crashing into the wall with a
That's
seatbelt.
Remember that?
What's that?
Did we have a discussion about this? Kind of you and
Did
I.
we?
So,
I don't
yeah.
know. We've had many depressing conversations about in this vein for sure.
You and I you were like getting, I mean, it sounds like you're getting it with Sam, but I'm like, the default state of, what was it? The default state of
I was like something about our failing democracy, and you said the default state of democracy is failing, which
right.
is an indication of my general mental state right now. I took as really encouraging. I was like, you know what, John, you're right. Like anything less than like a Hobbesian war, all against all, is a good day.
It's all apart. That's entropy, right? It's to keep building them back up again as they're crumbling around you. That's
actually, you know what
everything. Businesses, democracy, Outdoor Alliance.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm just finishing Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 on your recommendation, and it kind of makes you feel the same way. You're like, yeah, like it feels awful now, but I guess it's really always been awful, and like,
yeah, right.
That's the truth.
just
That's
keep
so
on
the
carrying on
truth.
and not take it so much to heart. But the only thing that makes it so hard to not take it all to heart for me is climate change, right? It's like, I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't say the only thing, but it's just the window of time to do something meaningful is closing terrifyingly rapidly. And on that note, that's really been a big focus of what we've been working on since the end of last year, when we were really hopeful that Build Back Better and its $555 billion worth of climate investments was going to make it across the finish line. And I don't know, I can't remember the last time we recorded, but obviously Joe Manchin kind of unceremoniously pulled the plug on those efforts right before Christmas. And, but that was really for reasons unrelated to the climate provisions. It was more around like the child tax credit and things like that. And so there's been, some nascent conversations on the Hill about, pulling the Democratic caucus together to do something with reconciliation between now and the middle of the summer. And, we're really keen to see, like a serious climate focused reconciliation package get done here in this like very narrow window of time that we have, both politically before presumably the Democrats get their clocks cleaned in November and scientifically before the world's just irrevocably on fire. So that's kind of the biggest thing. It's funny, like I feel like I had all these things that were on my list like before the end of the year that we were probably talking about the last time we recorded, and none of them got done, and none of them are dead yet. Like we're still working on the same thing, so we were kind of hoping to see across the finish line in like the end of December. But this big package of recreation policy bills that we're expecting the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee to mark up here like in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be sweet, like building towards, potentially a really solid package of recreation policy improvements, including like recreation, not red tape, and some other bills we've been working on for a long time, like hoping to see that stuff done by the end of this year. Working on a lot of like administrative stuff with the Biden administration. So yeah, carrying on.
What's recreation red tape going to get attached to? How's that going to make it across the finish line?
Well, I think there's going to be, there's like a pretty solid set of recreation policy bills kind of in the conversation right now, like including R&R. And I think all that stuff's going to get passed out of Senate E&R, I hope, relatively soon here. It's like kind of like a recreation package. I think it's possible that stuff goes to the floor standalone. And then I think, the most realistic scenario is that, hopefully reconciliation happens between now and the middle of the summer. Then everybody's going to go off and campaign for midterms, and it's going to be pretty quiet in DC until, I don't know, basically after the election, realistically. And then it's going to be just like frantic trying to get things done in the last like 6 weeks of the year. And I think that's probably when all this stuff's going to all get like rolled together into some like giant package of things, or it's going to get attached to some must pass thing. And that's when we're going to like really see things finished.
After the election.
I think so. But like we have a lot of groundwork to lay between now and then to like be able to capitalize on that like window of activity.
Always fascinating. Getting everything to the finish line. Man, I would love to see a renewed talking points of, nobody can argue over clean water. Everybody likes clean air. I would love to see these things start being.
Well, I think we could come up with some arguments against those things. We've talked about that.
You're probably right. At this point, we probably could.
Sure.
But anyway, there you go. Man, the Grand Canyon is drying.
Oh, yeah.
It's drying up, you guys. Like, I just got off a trip there, and they had to, right after we got off, do an emergency release of all of these reservoirs and whatever upstream to get enough water in Lake Powell so they could generate the power that was needed to, like, feed Vegas or whatever they do with it. Like,
right, they're like about to go below the turbine level, right?
Yeah, like
and
it's
then
like it's like 6 feet. Like we're not talking like it's got 45 feet to go. Like it's like like a human's height above where it starts cavitating air in the turbines. Like it's like a very serious thing. The people who are living out there right now, who like electricity and shit, they need to be freaking out, dude. Like it is freak out time. When you look at that lake, I've been going out and paddling the Grand Canyon. That was my 9th trip for like 20 something years. And looking at that lake, you're just like, oh my God. It doesn't even look like a lake. It looks like a hiking area.
I was talking to Nate Klima about this a bunch. He guided on the Grand Canyon for a number of years, and he was saying, like I guess they're talking about basically just giving up on Lake Powell more or less and just moving all the water down to Lake Mead, right? And
yeah.
But if they do that, they're not going to be able to control flows on the Grand anymore, and so the whole Grand Canyon scene is gonna change. It's going to be like, too low to run. I don't know, but like it's going to be like a couple thousand CFS maybe in the summer. Like they were thinking probably almost for sure too low for motor rigs. And then like if you want like I don't know good water, it's like you're gonna have to start trying to get like a spring runoff trip.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But that would be cool if you were able to do that at more like historic flows.
Like paddlers need to understand that in the next 20 years, there's going to be trips that are not going to go down the Grand Canyon. Like it's going to go dry at times. I don't know if it'll go completely dry, but it's not going to be like the big water 20,000 CFS thing that we've all known it to be. Like, I can't describe what that lake looked like. And even the water was lower for this last trip. It was still good. We still had like 11,000 to 16,000 CFS. But that's the thing about what's happening with climate right now is you don't need any formulas, models, math, or anything. You can just look at a picture from like 20 years ago. You know, it's like, it's very weird that this is just not an issue that people talk about.
It's an issue, but I think most people are like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, that should be what we talk about all the time, though.
Gelman's going to be the first one to tell you that doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, Democrats are going to get slammed this fall, and then we're going to be back to -10, you know?
Yeah,
and
but
what do we do? Stop driving? Sure, we can stop driving, I guess, right? Start walking around. It's not going to change anything. Not a single thing. You know, and so you keep reading the paper. People are like, no, you know, this is the fire alarms going off and no one's paying attention. Of course, we're all paying attention. Everybody's paying attention. There's not a single person I know who's not freaked out about this. But I mean,
but there's so little talk about the solutions.
I can vote for Democratic lawmakers all I want, but I know it's not going to make any difference at all. None, zero. Especially when you look at Asia or India or any place else that's as much to blame for this problem, if not more combined. So.
Yeah, but outside of political solutions, like, I think there needs to be way more talk going on. Whoever can solve this problem is going to make a lot of money. You know? Like, I don't know.
The problem is all the people whose money making depends on not solving the problem, you know? But I mean, you guys are right that like it's like telling people they can't have the things that they want, especially when you think about the developing world. It's like it's not going to work. It's like there has to be a technological solution aspect to all of this, but it's like we need to be pumping money into that. Like it's the emergency that it is, you know.
Dude, it's nuts, man. Just seeing that lake, and fall doesn't come around here until November instead of October, and it's just palatable. The Little White race, is the Little White going to be running in May?
Might this year. We feel like we're doing all right. We're hanging in there at low 3s still, and we had like a foot of snow in town like a week ago.
We had 3 feet of snow on Mount Hood, and it was really great that I couldn't do anything. I went for a walk.
Well, then maybe we don't need to worry about it. Maybe I'm making a big to-do about nothing.
I'm going to bring you some books, Weld.
Huh?
So I'm going to bring you some books.
I'm good. I'm reading Anna Karenina again.
Nice. Anna Karenina is depressing, man.
All right,
it's
guys.
like the entire experience is like watching somebody and just being like, no, don't do that. No, for like 800 pages. That's what Anna Karenina is like.
I like it's actually like 1,200 pages, but yeah.
All right, you guys keep it going. I'm getting ready to find Mark Singleton here.
When I think my last shoulder surgery, I think I borrowed a bike trainer. I had my bike set up on the porch and would just sit on the bike trainer, and I read like the entire Game of Thrones series on the bike trainer.
All the time, which I've not. I
haven't
just
gotten that desperate yet.
Man, I'm an outside kitty, man. I can't exercise indoors.
Riding the trainer bike with your arm in a sling, that's a fucking low point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I feel like the thing about those shoulder surgery recoveries is like after 2 months of literally doing nothing, like by the time you can start running again, you're going to be like going running is going to be like a sip of water after wandering across the desert. Like you're going to be so fucking happy that like you won't even, the next 4 months will be chill.
This started happening in November, right? So like the frustrating thing, one of the many frustrating things is, and this is why, once again, if you have this happen to you, don't do what I did and put off the MRI and take care of it sooner or later. But like I didn't do anything from November to January, like because my shoulder was messed up. But by the time I got surgery in April, I was pretty much back to normal. You know, I could do pretty much. I was getting ready to go boat, like for the first time in April. Like it was almost all better. But for the whole winter, I was basically running. That's all I could do was run. You know. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's a
Dumb.
I feel like I see that a lot. Like everybody's like thinks they're gonna rehab their horrible. I mean, I'm not saying it's what you did, but I feel like you see it where people are like hoping that it's going to get better, or hoping they're going to get rehabbed, and it's like just.
They were saying like at your age, this will go back, and you probably didn't do anything. That was kind of the takeaway. And Dr. Weasel set me straight on that one.
Yeah, straight to Brent. That's the answer.
So.
Are
I feel like
you,
we should.
are you doing military presses yet?
I can't wait. I was going to the weight room a bunch starting about January. I started doing military again, with my torn rotator cuff and everything. I thought about you, Grace.
It was getting stronger, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
you're not doing the bar, right? You're doing the dumbbells, right?
No, I'm doing the.
Ooh, that's not good.
Come on.
You want to do the dumbbells so you get all those little muscles. All right, I'm trying to get Mark Singleton on right now, guys. Forgive me. I'm just going to start going through this list and just start hitting all the Mark Singletons up.
There's 225 folks
Yeah,
in
it's
the
like
United States.
San Jose. Fuck it, let's go for it.
I'd like to talk about what we were talking about in the pre-show a little bit. Can we do that somehow? Talk about paddles?
I'm calling.
So I think from a consumer standpoint, this is an interesting problem.
These are your relationships to burn. So if you want to burn them, go for it.
Like, I've understood that Whitewater Technologies is no longer selling paddles. This could be a rumor, and if it's a rumor, I apologize.
We can't spread rumors about companies going under, except for the ones we've already spread rumors about going under.
Yeah, I went to the Facebook page. I couldn't see anything.
There's no going back, Lewis. We're in this.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see what the paddle market in the U.S. is interesting.
Why don't you jump in there, Weld?
No.
Can we talk about
Weld's
IR for a
going
second?
Weld's going the other direction. It's like you go into IR now, and like all the kayaking gear is like relegated to this corner, and it's just trying to be hit up the bougie Hood River tourist market.
Is
like kayakers, get out of here.
Yeah. You make the kayakers wait out on the sidewalk until they've been deliced or whatever they need to have done hygienically.
Man, I'm failing so hard here on getting Mark on here. So tell me about the store.
Well, we opened a store in Hood River. Come on down. We're doing some sewing there. We're making some apparel. Of course, we still sell kayaking gear. We love kayakers. That's our peeps. Lucas is being he's making a joke. But it was a big project, man. This is an expensive piece of real estate in downtown Hood River. We are definitely hoping to sell stuff to the skiers and mountain bikers and kiteboarders and stuff like that. But
Are they coming in?
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. The weather around here has been super great. We just opened up, so it's true. I mean, we'll do fine, I'm sure.
Have you seen a big quarterly revenue bump from the Geltman T-shirt?
The Geltman shirt's exciting opportunity for us for sure. That's a market we have not really neglected. I assure you. Have you seen the Geltman shirt, Grace?
I have not.
It's very special.
Oh, man. I was ready to murder you at the Little White Race party. I was like, fucking John Weld.
Wait, what happened?
It's a race. I think if you were fourth in the Little White Race, you got a Geltman shirt.
What?
Yeah.
I'll trade you a journal for a Geltman shirt.
We have other athletes coming out as well, so more to come. What I really want is I want a picture of Darby wearing the Geltman shirt on a shirt, and she has one because Nori made one for her. That's a little snapshot in the Hood River. If you're wondering how Hood River, like the Gorge paddling culture is going, that's a good little.
It's like if we couldn't get any more self-reverential out here.
Noria made Darby a Geltman shirt. Geltman took a picture of the shirt that Noria made Darby, and I want to take that picture and make it into a shirt.
Trying to nip this thing in the bud.
I'm helping your brand out, Lewis.
What's that?
I'm helping your brand out.
where that logo came from was we went to do we did a Grand Canyon trip with my buddy Cody Harris and a big crew that he put together a bunch of years ago, and one of his friends, Paul Heffernan, young Paul Heffernan from Missoula, who's a big Hammer Factor fan, and Cody made these stickers and then like plastered them all over Heffernan's gear, calculating correctly that it would make both Paul and me deeply uncomfortable.
And now they're back. And
what were the stickers?
I do own a shirt for that, but now there's stickers all over our sewing machines, and yeah, it's a whole thing.
Cody, you and Cody are both on my list.
Hey guys, it's Mark.
Oh man, the technology, we're geniuses. Welcome to the show, Mark Singleton.
Hey John Grace.
How's it?
Hey John Weld. Hey Lewis.
Mark,
how are you?
Mark, if you got a camera on your computer, you're more than welcome to turn it on if you want.
I'm going there right now. Here I am.
Hey buddy, how's it going?
Yes.
Good. How's it going for you guys?
Oh, we're going through. We're a little rusty. We haven't recorded in a while, but I think we're hitting our stride.
Yeah, Skype. I mean, I haven't used Skype since Jeff Payne worked at AW.
Oh, so Mark, what's going on? Where are you at right now?
I'm in wonderful downtown Cullowhee.
Okay. Is that your house?
It is.
All right. So, real quick, Mark, how long have you been at American Whitewater?
I've been at AW now for 18 years. So I started in 2004, and here I am today.
Oh, man, 2004. All right, so let's just get straight into it. What are you going to do now?
Good question. I haven't actually had time to even think about it. I mean, look, there's this myth that when you tell folks you're leaving your job, all of a sudden you get this like big hall pass to go wherever you want. Well, in my case, it's like everything that I put off doing for 18 years, it all just came due. So, I'm just cleaning up stuff. And look, I'll have plenty of time to figure out what's next. But right now I'm really just trying to wrap this one up.
Well, for those that don't know, Mark Singleton has been the executive director for American Whitewater for 18 years. I can firsthand say you've done an amazing job, and that's not just blowing smoke. The direction of American Whitewater and the achievements over that period of time, I mean, I guess real quick, do you just want to list some of your most, during your time as the executive director, some of the things you're most proud of that AW's pulled off?
Well, yeah, I mean, before I dive into a list of things like that, I mean, none of this stuff happened because I did it, right? It all happened because we've got a really great team of staff, and we got a really broad base of support in the community. So these are all, shared successes. The thing that that strikes me as kind of being at the top of the list is the dam removals that we've been able to accomplish. Those are concrete results, right? And I'm not just saying that as a bad pun, but when you get a dam out, that's a lasting legacy in that section of river. And probably the one that was the most memorable for me personally is Condit Dam on the White Salmon, where Lewis and John are. You show up for work and there's dynamite involved in your day, it's going to be a good day. That one was really quite memorable, and really proud of the work that Tom O'Keefe was able to pull off, largely representing American Whitewater in the Pacific Northwest there. And then closer to home, our small little dinky dam on the Tuckasegee, literally just a few miles from where I live, getting Dillsboro Dam out and allowing then for releases on the West Fork of the Tuck upstream of the dam. That's just a great local story, because I happen to be in the area, because I happen to live along the Tuckasegee. river, and it's it's just really rewarding to see those things happen. And then there's all sorts of legislative kinds of successes that we've had over the years, especially when it comes to designating new wild and scenic rivers. And those additional river miles in the wild and scenic system are something that are an ongoing legacy for the organization. And then hydropower releases. When I first moved to Western North Carolina, which now is a while back, it was in the 90s, I would ride my bicycle up along the Chioa, because there's a great road ride that goes around Fontana Lake and then up the Chioa drainage and loops back around. And I would look at the Chioa drainage and I go, gosh, that must have been fantastic boating when there would be water in it. And it had been dewatered, for 60 years. So when we got releases in the Chioa, back in 2005, being able to see that come back to life and seeing the way people respond to it, that's also just an enduring landmark for American whitewater. So those are the kinds of things that I'm really proud of. But probably the biggest one is I'm really proud of the team. Our staff, they crush it. I know, your listeners come from around the country, and, hopefully, they know the AW staff member that represents their region. And the staff just do such a phenomenal job representing the interests of their region. So, John, those are kind of some of my highlights. I could keep going. There's one other one I think I'm going to mention here, and that's the formation of Outdoor Alliance. I mean, we got Lewis hired. Oh my gosh, that was like Lewis would be like at the put into the Little White, trying to figure out what his next gig would be if it weren't for Outdoor Alliance. And the work of OA is just phenomenal. It represents paddlers, it represents backcountry skiers, it represents mountain bikes. It's just surfers. It's such a diverse outdoor eclectic mix of sports, and it's just worked really well for American whitewater to be part of that. And I'm proud of the things that collectively we've been able to accomplish through OA.
When you who was the big catalyst behind getting water in the West Fork? Just because it's such a it's a pretty burly run, but it runs really well. But who was jumping in there making that happen, or see that as an opportunity?
That wouldn't have happened without the work of Kevin Colburn. So the West Fork, for folks that haven't been in there, I think that's probably one of the just most phenomenal put-ins in the country. You're standing at the base of a 2-tier 150-foot waterfall, and you're literally in the mist. You're putting your spray skirt on. By the time your skirt's on and you're in the put-in eddy, you're already soaked. I mean, the water's just coming off the falls. And it just creates this incredibly powerful scene. And you peel out of the eddy and you're right into, some pretty committing class 4. So yeah, there's stuff going on up there. And it's a memorable run, but the put in is just absolutely phenomenal. And getting to the put in, it was never a given that there would be access there. There's a cliff band that you have to kind of negotiate your way around as you're carrying your boat, and there's a series of pretty long steps that are hewn out of natural rock and all put together. It was questionable whether there would even be access at the base of the falls for releases on the West Fork. And Kevin was the one that went in there, and he found the gap in the rim rock where a trail could go, and started flagging it. And the utility that provides the releases, which is Duke Energy, Duke then built that trail. And it was contentious in this part of the country, and especially in the community that I live in, which is in Silva, Cullowhee, which is where the the Tuck flows through. Not everyone thought it was a great idea. And what's amazing now is that access trail is used more by community members hiking than by whitewater boaters paddling. It's a community thing to go down to the base of High Falls when there's a release scheduled and watch them turn on the water, just because it's so amazing. I mean, the river goes from, essentially somewhere south of 50 CFS to 250 CFS all at once. And you just see this big spout of water coming over the top. So it's cool to see it. The communities rally behind it. And, no one thinks it's a bad idea now. And in Dillsboro, where the dam was removed that allowed us to get to that, no one says, hey, I want that dam back. It's an interesting observation on human nature, but we're all incredibly resistant as humans to change. But then when change happens, we adapt really quickly. And, it's fun to see. It's fun to see the local community adapting to boating in the region of that caliber. So, Kevin Colburn deserves the shout out on that one.
What do you think that trail cost?
I have no idea. No idea. It wasn't cheap.
I guarantee it.
All of that rock was harvested there on site, without heavy equipment. It was all hand hewn rock, block and tackle moved into place. It's a legacy trail. It's a big deal trail. So
it's a work of
there's
art.
some significant investment, and it's ongoing. Duke is maintaining it, right? So it's not like it was one and done. So kudos to Duke for making that all come together.
How do you guys target dams? I mean, people grow up in the lower Yaak or paddle in the upper Yaak or the Green. They come to really appreciate those dams being there. I mean, where do you stand being like, this dam needs to go, or this one work, or are all dams problematic in their own way? Like, how do you figure on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the process that we use is through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. All right, and federal dams have a license that typically lasts 30 to 50 years. All right, so each of these dams, requires this operating license, and we have to look at each one kind of on an individual basis and say, yeah, does it make sense? Is it is it still economically viable, right? And is it adding power to the grid in a way that is sustainable and isn't costing the ratepayers an arm and a leg to sustain the project so that it looks viable on paper, but in reality isn't. So the dams that we've removed are all dams that have passed their useful lifespan. I just mentioned Dillsboro Dam. Dillsboro Dam had been generating power up until 2004 when twin hurricanes hit the Tuckasegee drainage back to back. And the floodwaters from those hurricanes washed out the turbines in the powerhouse. And Duke then decided, well, rather than replace these washed out turbines, we could use the dam as a mitigation chip for licenses on the Nantahala and the Tuckasegee, and remove the dam at our expense, at Duke's expense, and that would be a form of environmental mitigation for continuation of the licenses that are much more profitable higher up in the system. So there are a number of dams in the headwaters of the Tuckasegee that produce a lot of energy for Duke. They got rid of a dam that produced no energy because the turbines had been washed out, and even then it was a low energy producer. So in that case, the economics of removing the dam kind of made sense for the utility, made sense for the local community. It allowed for recovery of the river channel so that species could migrate up and down. So it just generally made sense. Something like dams on the Yaak, where the lower Yaak counts on those releases. Those dams, they're they're there for a reason. They still have a useful purpose. They're not something that we're, gonna go after.
Well, how about like the Umbreon generates power from the dam? Was that something that could ever be? I mean, obviously, there's a huge lake upstream of that too. That, I mean, it's beloved by generations of Marylanders to vacation on or whatever. I mean, how would that play into this kind of discussion? Is it just never make sense because of what's upstream of that dam, or how would that play out?
Well, I would never say never. Never is a long time.
Right.
That's why these licenses are 30 to 50 years. You and I probably aren't going to see it in our lifetimes, but at some point it might make sense.
Yeah, just to drain Deep Creek.
Or you're going to have to do something. The dam's not going to stay up forever.
Right.
When we talk about forever in geological terms.
Mm-hmm.
I got a funny story about American Whitewater, Mark. This was before you came there. So, I don't know who was running the show at this time, but this was 2002, I think.
Jedico, right?
I don't know. But I was at a meeting out in California with Teva Footwear. And they were talking about sponsoring this Liquid Lifestyles rodeo tour. And I was sitting in the room, and there was like various things going on, and they were like, we're going to give American Whitewater $100,000 to put on this rodeo tour. And I was like, oh my God, man, that is a huge investment in like a rodeo tour. And so I'm listening, I'm like, oh, that's cool, whatever, AW is putting on this rodeo tour. And the meeting's over, and I go to Adam Druckman, the guy I was working with there, and I'm like, hey man, we put on this race on the green, and we're hoping to get like $300 for some t-shirts, dude. You think you can help us out? And he's like, that just doesn't really align with what we're doing and whatever. And I'll just never forget being like, man, that was crazy. But like seeing AW in that time going to putting on events and kind of, I don't want to be like judgmental, but in my opinion, being kind of scattered to like being laser focused, I kind of attribute that to you. So I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt or anything, but I really feel like there was a big shift when you came. I mean, did you look at the books and be like, what exactly are we doing here? Like, I don't know how much you can say about that.
that was the rodeo tour that Deva gave us $100,000 to implement, and it cost AW $200,000 to pull it off.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you make $1 million in the paddle sports industry? You start with $2 million. Right. So
we rodeo too.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation when you came into the office and we're like, what? No, what? We're what?
No, you wouldn't have. It was a long conversation. It took a while, it's just challenging. I mean, we had to go through some pretty painful years there to get everything realigned, and it's a period of adjustment, and it's difficult. I mean, the irony in all of this for me is that I'm the guy that was hired as the change agent to come in and make those changes, and usually when you're hired in that situation, you might last 3 years in a job, right? and that's exactly what I expected. I'd be in the job for like 3 years and I'd be out of here. And at that point, I'd probably be sideways with the board and people would be happy to see me go. And that never happened, It was just like, wow, we got something going that really worked. And, people started getting really excited about it, and we started having a lot of success. And, that just steamrolled into its own, its own thing that, it is focused. It's focused on this notion of river stewardship, and stewardship wrapped up all of the various pillars of American Whitewater at the time, which were access, conservation, safety. And it's this integrated notion that, stewardship of rivers is something that the paddling community can really rally behind and support. And we still do Golly Fest, so it's still an event, and Feather, Gore, Deerfield, but events aren't the thing that that the organization is hanging its hat on these days. It's, the events are really a way for us to bring the community together to celebrate the stewardship successes. They're not the thing that we do in and of themselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was just super evident, and I don't know. I just really have super vivid memories of that.
Well, I mean, it's such a reflection of the whole story. The whole industry was like that.
Oh,
I mean,
my God. It was just everybody just had
all distracted and just hemorrhaging money everywhere. And somewhere in the mid-2000s, either you figured out you needed to get laser focused on some important things or you went out of business.
Well, luckily we didn't go out of business, but there were some dicey moments there.
Yeah. I mean, how do you guys stand now? I mean, is the past couple of years been good for you guys like it has for most of the outdoor industry, or, I mean, financially?
Financially, American Whitewater is just on really solid ground.
Yeah.
The past couple of years, folks have been very generous to support our work and continue to be generous to support our work. So there's a really strong foundation that's in place that will carry AW through for, long after I'm gone. And this is the right time for me to transition out, because we're not worried about how we're going to pay the bills. It's really, what are the things that we're going to take on as an organization that are meaningful projects to the paddling community, meaningful projects to the conservation of rivers. And, folks can really zoom in on that and not have to worry about, where the next big source of funding is coming from.
It's interesting, like, just thinking about the way you've described it in the past, starting at AW, and just it being sort of a harrowing time to be taking over the organization. And I'm imagining, for the next person, for the next executive director at American Whitewater, there's something else that's sort of harrowing about taking over an organization that's just firing on all cylinders, right? Like, it's almost like you just don't want to mess it up, right? Like, everything is going so great.
This is your game to lose now.
Yeah, kind of, right?
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like, I guess I'm curious, like, what do you see?
Why do you think I'm leaving? I've done what I need to do here. I'm out, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just curious, like, where you see, like, what do you see the real opportunities are for the next ED? Like, what do you see the future being for AW? Like, what are the things that, you would love to see the next, where would you like to see the organization 10 years from now, or
That's
down
a
the
great
road?
question. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for American Whitewater right now. So that this job for the next person is gonna have some big ways to move forward and really change the needle. And before I kind of dive into those, I want to kind of share this story because it's kind of indicative of the trajectory of AW over a really long period of time. But I started paddling in Ohiopyle, and I spent a lot of time around the Yaak and the Cheat. And back in the early '80s, I remember paddling on the Cheat with a friend of mine. It was like this beautiful spring day, first week of May. Leaves are budding out. It's sunny, it's warm. No one else on the river, and we paddle down and we get out of our boats at the bottom of High Falls. We go up, climb up on the rocks. We had some snacks, drank some water. And two other boaters come down. The only other people we'd seen on the river all day. They do the same thing. They get out on the rocks. They're having lunch. We start chit-chatting. And they start talking about this thing called the Federal Power Act, right? I'd never heard. I'm a 20-year-old boater that just wants to go paddle. Federal Power Act meant nothing to me, right? And they start explaining to us younger boaters what the Federal Power Act was and how they were working to insert this equal consideration clause into the Federal Power Act. And that equal consideration clause is the thing that we use to really leverage FERC for downstream recreational flows out of hydro projects right now. Turns out those two boaters were Pope Barrow and Mac Thornton, two DC boaters that are like the godfathers of American Whitewater. I had no idea at the time. And, they were instrumental in developing this equal consideration clause within the Federal Power Act that we've used now for you know, 30 plus years. And, I remember kind of getting back in my boat after meeting him on the river there, and looking at my friend and going, those guys are absolutely nuts. I have no idea how they're gonna do the things they say they're gonna be able to do. And we paddled on down, and now this Federal Power Act is like part of my life, and I just look back on that day on the cheat, a long time ago, and go, wow, that was a little foretelling. So to get to your question, Louis, there's some work on the Federal Power Act that needs to be done, and it could be really good for rivers. I mean, as a real top level, high priority project nationally, taking a look at where hydropower fits in the portfolio of energy here in the United States is something that the next ED could really play a role in, and making sure that when we're talking about hydropower and we're talking about quote unquote renewable resources, that we're not just given all hydropower a green light, because hydropower does have impacts. And right now, we're not recognizing the impacts to the full extent that we could. So taking a look at the Federal Power Act, balancing the impacts of hydropower, coming up with ways to really take a look and, first of all, inventory these dams that have no economic viability. In some cases, the owners have walked away from them. No one even knows who they belong to, and figuring out what the appropriate approach is to remove those things, right? So there's a lot of room to make some hay with that project. And there are other projects, of a similar nature that can kind of fit in. I mean, it's a little odd that all of a sudden, our staff at AW have kind of become the experts at FERC in hydropower relicensing and dam removal, but we've done more of it now than anybody else. And I'm not just saying that. So, there's a certain expertise that we've developed over the last 20 years that's really valuable at this point in time.
So on your last day, you can blow up one dam in this country. you snap your fingers, are going to knock it into pebbles. What dam is it going to be?
The gold watch and the plunger.
Right. They'll give you a thing. You can push it down, and boom, gone. What's the dam?
I mean, and look, I shouldn't joke too much about that, but this is another really big issue challenge for the next ED, is how do we deal with water allocation and water scarcity in the Colorado Basin, right? I mean, it's in the news daily, and it's a big deal because as goes Colorado and the upper Colorado Basin, and then the states in the Colorado Compact, we're setting a tone for what happens with water allocation around the country. And, it's an issue that, we're all going to need to be dealt with, because we're not making new water molecules. We got what we got. I mean, and look, this is all fictitious. I'm not blowing up things, right? So don't. All right,
it's be blowing up any dam.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark is.
Let's just be clear here, right?
Maybe Mark is going to be finally the person who gets us canceled.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah.
I want to hear your dams, Weld, Grace.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'm not saying a word. Man, I got a little side topic here. You were talking about the mitigation of that dam on the West Fork with Duke Energy. So, and I don't know if this is really an AW thing, or if this is something that someone who builds play parks like a Scott Shipley should take on, or something like that. But here in Asheville, there has been talk about making a play wave or a feature on the French Broad River for eternity. It's never not been talked about since birth. Since humans have been to this side of the country, it's been talked about. But it never seems to happen, okay? Mark Hunt is doing some great work with the woodfin wave. There's a lot of things happening on that front. That's an ongoing thing that's been going on for a while. But just down the road from me, a Raytheon factory moved in. And they built a bridge across the French Broad River for this Raytheon factory in like a weekend. They just threw this big 5-lane bridge and whatever. And in the process of building this bridge, they put some gravel in and some concrete and some things in the stream bed so they could access different parts of the bridge to build it and do everything they were going to do. And they created a great wave, actually 2 great waves. And literally in the matter of a weekend, there's been talk of building this feature forever. I wonder if there's some way to work in some kind of mitigation with projects like that happen on the river, where it's like, hey, you're going to put pylons in a river for eternity. While you do that, you have to do something for recreation. Has anybody ever talked about that, or do you think that's a feasible concept?
Well, it's actually a concept that we use in Colorado. The state has its own recreational in-channel diversions, which then help to create a junior water right, and that's how many of the play parks in Colorado have been established. We're in the process of trying to take a look at that and establish potential water rights for natural features in rivers, so that you don't have to put a structure in the river to create that junior right. And it's unique to Colorado. It's something that the state's done. But all of those Colorado whitewater parks that have been established in the last 20 years are largely these RICD projects. Here in the East, we don't use them that much, but the concept is still valid, not so much for the water right that it brings, but for the recreational opportunity that it could trigger. It's probably not something that I'd say American Whitewater would jump at unless there was some river restoration element involved. But, there are a number of places where, there could easily be a restoration element that's part of the project. And then it would be something that would be a consideration.
It was just amazing to watch how quick they altered the stream bed and formed this feature. And then we even went down and talked to the guys who were building the road, and they were like, unfortunately, we have to take all this gravel out and whatever. So everything that they used to build this great feature in the river that was there for like 3 months, then they got done with their job and just pulled it all out. And so now we're just stuck with a couple extra pylons in the river. And it just made sense. I was like, I bet somebody could make an app that looked at permit filings for any of that kind of stuff and just went in and, I don't know, just seems like Raytheon had unlimited money. It's like the money we're trying to find to build the woodfin wave is hard to find, but they don't have any trouble finding money. So anyway, just a thought.
Raytheon Whitewater Park coming soon.
I'm just telling you what happened. They built a Whitewater Park in a weekend.
We make drones, Death Stars, and your favorite playway.
It's the Raytheon Lockheed Martin Little White Race.
I'm just telling you. I'll put some pictures in the show notes.
Sounds like going back to the old champion race slalom days.
Oh man, Mark, what was your lowest moment of your tenure at AW? What was the point that was just a big bummer?
I think that look, I'll be honest here. The lowest point for me is when we lost a staff member paddling. I mean, it's a tragic consequence of the sport that all of us love. But when you lose a friend and a colleague in an accident like that, it sucks.
There's no doubt about it. What about your premier moment of your career there at American Whitewater?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but it's not a bad day at work when you get to go and see a dam come out, right? I mean, that's that's something that just is really, you remember it for a long time. It's kind of like waking up on Christmas and you go unwrap a present and you have no idea what's in the package, right? And you just see the river kind of come back into its natural channel and take its own natural shape, and it's like, wow, this thing has a life to it. And then you come back a couple years later and you look at it and you just go, wow, this thing is like, not just does it have a life, I mean, it's incredibly resilient. It bounces back like way faster than the engineers will predict. And seeing that happen is just it's deeply rewarding.
That's really cool. I have my tour ticket from the Condit Dam decommissioning event right here up on my bulletin board above my desk, and I remember that day very vividly as well. It's awfully cool, and just like a sight you never see, seeing all that water just tearing all of this old sediment out of the riverbed. And, just to live here just a few miles down the road and watch that section of river come back to life over the last 10 years it's just really neat, It's really cool.
So when you drive, I just drove down to LA to do some sewing stuff, but when you drive down I-5, like north of LA, for like an hour and a half, you drive past signs that say, get rid of these dams for agricultural reasons. Do you know what that's all about? Is this a place where you're working with really diverse group of people in the same common goal, or is that completely out of what we're discussing here?
Yeah, there needs to be some overlap with what with the work that American Whitewater really does, which is on whitewater rivers. There are lots of groups that can work on lower in the watershed, and that's typically, I think, where you're referring to the stuff around the San Joaquin Delta. And it's that's not an area where we've invested a lot of time and resources. We're typically investing our efforts further upstream where there's both water and gradient. The lower dams typically have water. They don't typically have a lot of gradient. So, we're kind of more focused further up the connection. But on that I-5 route that you just drove, you passed over the Klamath River. And the Klamath is going to be one of the country's largest river restoration projects ever. All right. So 4 dams on the Klamath, all scheduled to be removed, all starting to happen. And that is a project that we're really heavily invested in, and working with tribal interests, working with agricultural interests, trying to, figure out what the right balance for access is, so that once the dams are removed, there's access for paddling, access for other forms of recreation, and then also, for the reintroduction of salmon runs, which were once the most successful salmon runs in California and on the West Coast, south of the Pacific Northwest. So, the Klamath River restoration is going to be something to really watch moving into the future. We're talking about a project that's likely going to take a couple of decades. It's not going to happen fast, but it is going to happen. So, that's a real encouraging place to put kind of a pin on the map and keep an eye on.
When you guys fight together these dams removed, who are you typically fighting with? Is there a group of people, or I mean, who's your typical foe in these situations where maybe the dam that people even know who owns it and you're trying to get removed? Who are you arguing with on this?
Well, I mean, they're coalitions that come together around these projects, and each one of them's a little different, right? Our coalition partners are typically, groups that have an interest in seeing the river come back to some semblance of a restored river system. The folks that may be on the other side of that are folks that typically have some other interest or supposed interest. There can sometimes be economic interests involved, just because dam removal costs a lot of money, right? If someone else is paying the freight on it, that's not a blank check.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to have to write it. So there could be some potential resistance there. Fortunately, we recently got an infrastructure bill passed through this Congress that allows for some money to be set aside for projects like this. That's a big deal. That pot of money previously hadn't been there, so hopefully it can be tapped to move some of these projects off dead center. The interests that are largely on the other side of the table, could be utilities that don't want to pass the removal costs on to ratepayers and have an economic interest that they're trying to protect. So they may not necessarily be opposed to dam removal. They're just opposed to paying the price of dam removal and want to find another source for that funding.
I gotcha.
Makes sense. So, Mark, who's your replacement?
Ready to announce somebody?
Good question.
Because we're gonna bring him
John,
on.
Right
how
here.
about you? No, I think we got the crew right here. AW run by Hammer Factory.
You don't want that. Nobody wants that. Well, whoever it is, we're gonna bring him on here and grill him. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Or her.
Yeah. The board is going through its process right now, soliciting candidates and looking at who is potentially interested in the position. I can tell you, if I had to go through the interview process and go through the hiring process today, there's no way I'd get hired. They're not looking, the bar has been raised so much higher than when I was brought on board. So it's gonna be interesting, and I'm confident the board will find somebody that's really good, and it's just gonna take AW to the next level. But it's gonna be a little while for them to go through their process and be thorough about this.
Well, man, Mark, I certainly appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, good talking with you guys.
Man,
Yeah.
I'll be parking my van in your parking lots, respectively, across the country here in the next couple of years. So, I'm not saying goodbye.
Man, I just want to say thanks, Mark, for all of your time at American Whitewater. And, man, no joke, you have been a rock in this sport and done just badass stuff. So, big thank you from me, for sure.
Yeah.
Likewise, thank you on so many levels.
Well, look, thank you guys. I mean, it means a lot to me to hear it coming from other rocks in the sport. We got to get some new rocks in this sport. It's time to start twisting some arms with these like young 20 and 30 something guys to get them to step up. But I know that'll happen over time, and I know for me at least, I didn't come into it without kicking and screaming because all I wanted to do was go boating.
There's some good ones out there. I feel like there's some good 20 and 30-year-olds out there right now, for sure.
I agree.
Inspire me, that's for sure.
We got to make our own rocks. So yeah, that's the challenge for all of us. All right, guys. I'm
all
out.
right. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, sir. Man, dude, he's a Whitewater legend. I mean, since over the past 20 years, 18 years, however long he said it had been.
That's
Mark is you have a copy of the Squirt book, that the Jim Snyder book about squirt boating, and there's the dude on the cover paddling that like 13-foot tiger stripe boat, just like doing a pivot turn.
That's Mark.
Mark Singleton.
I know that picture. I never knew that was Mark, though.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hey, can we talk about something?
Oh, God. Here we go.
No, it's good.
All
Let's
right.
talk about composite boats real quick and EJ, because I did Karen and I did a presentation for the canoe cruisers in DC a week or two ago.
No way.
Actor fans, yeah. And
You still get like the canoe. I haven't heard the name about the canoe cruisers.
What
in a
is the canoe
long time.
cruisers?
Ed Gerler. Ed Gerler was running the movie, or they're running the thing of all
Sick.
people. Yeah, it was great. It's Ed Gerler.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll see him out there paddling his Han up the
Absolutely.
Potomac.
Anyway, so like I said, a bunch of Hammer Factor fans, but also we had a guy come on who, he was like, there's really a space in the marketplace for a composite boat. And I understand these guys live in the Potomac where maybe rocks aren't as big a deal as they are other places. And now EJ is releasing, this 23-pound carbon half slice. What do you think? Is this a business? I mean, is this a growing market, or is this another fringe thing that's going to die out like every other kooky paddle sports idea?
What I want to say is that a long time ago, when he first started with his $15,000 fishing kayaks,
Yeah.
all of us said, why is he not doing something in Whitewater or trying this in Whitewater?
I think it was more like he'll be doing something in Whitewater sooner or later.
Yeah,
That was more the thing.
I guess it took a lot longer than
I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't want to make a whitewater boat. I would never fault somebody for doing that. Or not doing that or whatever. But
I mean, I think it's definitely inevitable. It's like that's the next. I mean, the technology in boat construction has not changed since the 80s, right? Like they're road rolling polyethylene boats. Like they've gotten a little better, but it's like it's the same shit.
But a composite,
And like
23-pound composite boat, as today's technology stands, unless he's charging $25,000 for the boat, it's going to break. It's going to break.
I mean, I'm not saying that 23 pounds is the answer. Like, I mean, but I feel like there is definitely a market out there for composite boats, and like there are environments where it makes sense. And like, if I lived at the Fuda, I would do horrible, unspeakable things to have a 30-pound composite steez to paddle. Like it's and like the Potomac is a great example, right? Like that's like your market, or like your number one market, right? Like people who have money, paddle deep river all the time, want to surf.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you crack that nut exactly, and it's going to be more expensive than a polyethylene boat, but like I totally believe it's possible and do it. Like it's going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of
I mean,
when.
Warren's making these composite boats. He'll make a steez for you. I mean, why isn't he blowing up?
Have you seen any of those boats, man?
I have. Yeah.
How much do you think his boat's going to cost?
EJ's boat? I mean,
It doesn't have the funky seat, all the other things that are in the fishing boat. Like, how cheap can he get it? Can he get it below $5,000?
if he's very pro retailer. Like he always throws in a retail business model. You can say what you will about it. He's a friend of the retailer, which means they're going to be expensive if he plans to sell them through retailers. Which, like everything else he's done, I can't imagine he won't. Yeah, I mean $5,000, $6,000. It doesn't. I mean, he's going to sell 30 of these things, and he has to pay for the 50 or however the development cost of this boat, which is going to be enormous, and labor costs will be extremely high, and material costs will be even higher. If he plans to throw carbon in, I mean, what carbon has increased in price by what, like 40-fold in the past
1,000,000%,
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that's the boat, but like, if you could build like, with like a Uresta resin or like something different than what's going on now. Like, like Eric DeGille came to the North Fork like 5 years ago with a boat made by some French company that was like composite boat, 35 pounds probably, bomber. And like, if I could buy a boat like that and I could get, a season on the little weight out of it and then sell it for 60% of what I paid for it.
You do one stern tap in that boat, it would break in half.
I don't think that's true. I think you can build a boat that, I mean, doing it the way we were doing it, the way you guys were doing it at Valleyville Boats in like the late 80s, no. But like, I think that it's possible to.
It's the same epoxy, the same, I mean, carbon's carbon, Kevlar's Kevlar. Spherotex is Spherotex. I mean, we don't have anything. If there's anything new coming along the pipeline, we certainly can't afford it in this sport.
I don't know. I think it's possible. Just talk to Ryan about it. We should get Ryan on to talk about it.
But
like, if I could buy, if I could paddle a boat that was totally stiff, weighed 15 or 20 pounds less than the boat I'm paddling now, and I could, if that thing cost $5,000 and I could sell it at the end of the season for 3,000 or 3,500, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I tend to think I would too. But I mean,
Sure. If you could make me a 30-pound boat that would last a whole season, yeah, of course. I think a lot of people would, but I don't think that's possible.
yeah, that's the
I think it
kicker.
is.
I don't know if it's possible or not. I find it interesting. I find it way more interesting than his fishing kayak thing that he was doing. So,
You just got to. I don't know. I mean, what do you think of the boat?
The thing is that it looks like I didn't read the latest thing, but I feel like I saw something that EJ had posted somewhere that you guys sent to me a while ago that he was trying to make a boat for this I hate to even use the words, but that extreme slalom nonsense that they're doing alongside World Cups now.
That's what
which
he's
is basically
basing it off of.
it's right, and it's like basically a boatercross race on an artificial slalom course, and it's stupid and it's embarrassing, and the best slalom racers don't do it. But if you're building your boat for that, I mean, that is the stupidest niche of the most niche activity in the whole sport. So I can't say that that's the winning ticket to getting into composite boat manufacturing. It's I think this is just an activity that EJ's into when he wants his own boat design. But do I think you can build a composite boat that's, certainly good for class 4 paddlers? Somebody who has some money, is not running the green or the little white 100 days a year, but wants to go to the Golly all the time and the upper yacht and paddle a super high performance boat and is not afraid to spend some money, 100%.
Who's paying for all this stuff that EJ's doing? We got to get him on.
He claimed, when he was on the show, he claimed he was very clear he did not want to take equity partners back in again. Yeah. But from what I saw, it looks like he was trying to find an equity partner not a year later. But
I don't know. I can't believe it took so long to start coming out with these. Personally, I wonder if he had. Yeah, for EJ, I thought that would be 6 months from now. We have our whitewater boat. I never.
Yeah. If I could coach EJ on business, I would advise him. He's not going to listen to this, but I would advise him not to focus on finding some niche thing and convincing the world it's the best thing that's ever existed, but maybe just make something that has mass appeal and really drill down on supply chain and delivering on time and good customer service, like the boring stuff. But I guess you're good.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if it comes out and it's $8,500 for your boat, it's it's dead on arrival.
You guys think you saw the hull shape? It has pretty hard chines on it. From what I saw,
it
looks like a power flip. As soon as drop the booth a little bit off angle or off camber, you'd be.
It'll be great at Nottingham or wherever they're doing
one of the canals or whatever.
Really upstream in an artificial eddy, slamming into that thing, no problem.
All right, where do we go from here, boys?
Viewer mail.
Raves. I got to go back to work.
Yeah, I got to go back too.
We're going right into rant. We're dissing all of these listener mails.
We have one piece of viewer mail that was more or less the catalyst for us getting back on the show here that we have to bring up.
Is it on Trello?
Yeah, I got the whole board set up.
Which one is it? I'm not logged
in. There's
in.
emails by people asking us when we're coming back, so you can just group those all into one.
Pete wants Hammer Factor. Will wants Hammer Factor. Felix wants Hammer Factor. Brownie wants to talk about the Green movie. Owen wants Hammer Factor. Jeff, where's Hammer Factor? Darren has a question on paddle length. Haley Thompson and the Grand Salmon Expedition. We got to do this huge birthday shout out. Don't you think?
Yes.
I mean, this is a good one. I'm going to read the whole email. It's pretty wordy, but this may be.
Do you want to read the email, or should we just deliver this gentleman his birthday?
Yeah, email.
You're right. Okay, so we got an email, and I can't figure out, is this it's boyfriend, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do we know Jesse's last name?
We don't.
All right. Happy birthday, Jesse.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jesse. In fact, Jesse, I have a special gift for you. It's a Geltman shirt.
What? How does he get a Geltman shirt and I don't have a Geltman shirt?
All you need to do. So I listen, and I don't want 60 trillion people asking for Gelman shirts. You're not going to get them. But Grace, not you, Grace, but Grace, the girlfriend, Grace. So I know it's you. You can write us because we have your email. You give me a shirt size, and I'll send you a Gelman shirt.
Looky there. Be nice to Grace, Jesse. She did you
a very, very rarefied crowd.
Yeah, she did you a solid on that one.
Yeah. This will be a prized possession. I'd frame it. I wouldn't wear it necessarily, but you can decide what you want to do.
All right. So should we shut it down there? We've got some other listener mails we can get to them. We're almost at 2 hours. I figure that's about as long as anybody can deal with us. Should we do this paddle length and feather here?
We'll be a hammer factor without a paddle length.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is someone who needs some help, you know. Just starting out on my whitewater journey and picked up a Liquid Logic XP10, 10th anniversary model. Scored a great price in mint condition, he says. Unfortunately, it's the model before the badass seating, but that's another episode. My question is, being crossover boat and living in Connecticut with limited whitewater, I went with a 215 centimeter paddle. Yeah. Should I lean towards an even shorter paddle, 200 to 205, in a 28-inch wide boat, or am I in the right area for an all-around whitewater to flatwater paddling size? Love the podcast. Thanks. This comes at us from Darren Kramer. Darren Kramer, 215.
If I were an XP10, I'd stick with the 215, man.
I don't think he needs a new paddle. Until he really ups his whitewater game, he's flipping a lot and all that kind of thing.
Dude, don't use the 215. You're going to rip your shoulders out, man. You're going to end up like Weld. Weld's like, yeah, 215. Like, I can't pick my arm up right now. Don't.
Your shoulders are messed up, too.
What is an XP10? How long is the XP10?
It's a 10-foot boat with the hatch in the back.
Don't use a 215. Get it. I don't know how tall this guy is, but not.
If you get 205, you can't even reach over the edge of the boat. You're gonna be like leaning over to get the blade in the water.
I would like to know how tall he is, but I'm gonna say that until he starts spending a lot of time on whitewater and flipping over a lot, he doesn't need to get a different paddle.
I'm saying he runs. Let's say he's running big splat in the XP10. He's got a 215. That boy is laying trees. He's going to be digging in off the lip of that thing. That XP10 is going to soar. Look at that.
Skeg down.
Right. Wham, put the stake down. Boom, lay a treat.
215. I don't know. It's a little long for an XP10, but do you need to buy another one when you're not paddling a lot of whitewater? I don't really know.
Between 215 and 208 or whatever is hold your fingers apart. It's this much.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal.
It is a huge deal. If you don't do that, don't use your 215. Get proper whitewater paddle a little longer than what you would use for a normal whitewater boat. So if you're 6 feet tall, normally you'd probably want like a 200 or a 202. With the XP, you probably want like a 204 or a 26. So like, don't use a 215 unless you're like 7 feet tall. You're gonna hurt yourself. And develop crappy technique. Don't do that.
Well, a rare moment of dissent. On a lake.
Yep. We're all entitled to our own opinion.
Yeah. What I have in mind right now is like, I feel like we talked about this a while back. Like the guy from it was like the Whitewater video YouTube channel who'd reposted the 95 Great Falls race, and I was watching it, and like my buddy,
that was a sick video, dude.
My buddy Ryan Goodrow, who was like 16 at the time, and he was a tall dude. He was probably like 6'4" or something when we were 16. And you know, his dad had been paddling since like the 60s, and so they had like some like seriously ancient paddling equipment around their house. And he was like, "Dude, I found this paddle. It's gonna make me so fast today. It's like a 214."
Did he crush it?
It's like goodies out there. He's like wearing this helmet that doesn't stay on his head. The chin strap is like he's wearing. We don't wear a chin strap super loose, like hockey player style. And so Goody's like trying to like whip his helmet back onto his head, and he's just like paddling with this like 214 paddle, and it's so funny. That's what I have in my head when I'm imagining dude in the XP. It's Goody circa 1995.
215 is long for a whitewater paddle. That's for sure. I'll give him that.
That is true. That is.
But I think if he's mostly on flat water and not a lot of whitewater, I think he could get some life out of that 215.
I would say use it until your forearms or get your tendonitis in your forearms or something like that. In that case, you could
well, use it until you get hurt.
Just pile it all and move on.
Oh, God. All right. Now on to everyone's favorite section of the show, Rants and Raves, where your hosts go on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave. Something that makes you feel oh so good or not so good. Anybody want to lead us off here?
I got one.
Lay it on us.
I got a rave. It's a rave for Noria. And listen, I'm not trying to be like Mr.
You're a fanboy, dude.
Triumph.
Like, let's just go.
I'm just saying, you watch that movie. I'm going to make this distinction, and I hope this doesn't sound like. I hope this makes some kind of sense. I don't think there's any argument that Dane Jackson's the best kayaker in the world, but I think Nori is the greatest kayaker in the world. I think that in my mind, there's a bit of a difference. I mean, when Dane makes the French slalom team, and Dane takes the deep, deep expedition dive that Nori has taken, and has that kind of a resume, then, it's a different thing. But that's just not who Dane is. And, of course, Dane, there's no arguing what Dane's done in the sport. But Nori is a different situation that really has its own distinction, in my opinion. I don't know. I just think she's the shit.
She's amazing. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
She's been out here for a couple of weeks, and it was enjoyable to see her in action.
I got a rave. I'm going to rave about paddling clubs. In particular, the West Asheville Canoe and Kayak Organization, the WACOs. So the WACOs are a group of friends, people my age, and they have got members as young as 6 to older, and they do the coolest things, man. Just like these fun trips to rivers where everybody gets together. They rent a whole bunch of campsites, and they bring some music out, and hire a band to come out and do their own little mini races and do their own little kids camps and all sorts of stuff. And it's just cool to see a fun group of clubbers that are doing it right. So I'm just going to rave about some clubs.
And I'm going to rave about Rush Sturgis and Evan Smith. Just super grateful to those guys for all their work putting on the Little White Race. It's a thankless and unpleasant job. And, there's no shortage of opinions in the community out here about what that race should look like, and down to every little detail, and just really appreciative of Rush and Evan's efforts in bringing this thing off and putting together a really sick party. And it's a lot of work, and just thank you guys.
Yep, that's awesome. All right, well, we did it. I mean, we'll see you in the fall. Thanks for listening to Hammer Factor. We'll be a little more regular here in the coming days, and we'll see you on the water.
Bye-bye.